some things that tell you a little bit about myself. And so I want to begin by talking about where I come from. So my community is Ardok Algonquin First Nation, and my homeland is the Kichizibi, which is the Ottawa River Valley. And I'm really glad to be here. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to the 7th Annual Indigenous Knowledge Gathering. We are delighted to have you here to share with us in this important event. Thank you for coming. That so many of you have traveled from such great distances to be here, and some of you are watching online. We're really grateful to have you here. And it really speaks to the importance of this event, the fact that we're focusing on wellness of our peoples, of our children, our youth, our families, and all peoples going forward into the future is something that we can be really proud of. This year, we're really focusing on the core elements of what it takes to create healthy cultures and learning spaces. In the same way that ripples spread out across the surface of a pond, wellness radiates out to all our relations, both our human and other than human relations, which has the power to impact the health and wellness of the entire ecosystem. The stronger our people are, the stronger the relational network becomes. And so at the same time, if there's a breakdown of one or more spheres of our health, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, this destabilizes all our relations. And so together we have the power to shift thinking to positively impact the well-being of all peoples. To do that, we will need to look at wellness through a different lens. We will need to come together to develop partnerships that build wellness in every sense of the word. So if we build wellness in the context of our emotional, our mental, our physical, and our spiritual selves, then we'll create structures that build wellness within all of our relations. And so we are honored to be able to hear from the amazing leaders who are gathered here today, all of which are breaking down barriers that impact the health and wellness, not only in their own lives, but in the lives of those around them. And before I hand over to our Masters of Ceremonies for the day, I want to say once more on behalf of Humber College, thank you for being here, and miigwech.
Sego, my name's Caitlin Phillips. My family is from Ganawage First Nation. I am a Humber alumni, and now I'm full-time Aboriginal Resource Center staff.
Good afternoon. Ani Kweza Stishnikas, Makwa Dodem, Gidiganzi B Dunjaba, Toronto and Dinda. I am proudly from Garden River First Nation, and I have been working here at Humber for the past 6 years.
On behalf of Humber College and the Department of Education and Engagement, I'd like to welcome you to the annual Indigenous Knowledge Gathering.
To everybody who is tuning in on the live stream, thank you for joining us. This year, our gathering will be focusing on wellness in all aspects of life, like Gina had mentioned.
So this year is special because it marks the 10 years of Humber College having an Aboriginal Resource Center that services Indigenous students from all over Turtle Island. Today is also special because it's the birthday of a very special member of our team, Kevin Vos Landivar, wherever he is. But if you see him today, feel free to embarrass him and wish him a happy birthday.
This event is also special for myself and Caitlin as we started this gathering together in 2014. I'd like to also give a special shout out to our work studies along the years who have helped make this event what it is today. I'd also like to thank our team in the ARC, our work studies now, for helping us put together a gathering like this that's going to touch a lot of people and cross a lot of communities. So, with that, I'd like to welcome and introduce Liz Ozwamek and Jada Ponce, who will be doing an opening prayer so we can start off the day in a good way.
Ani Bosho, Ginumi Gondigo, Makwandinwema, Amiktodem. We quem kung minidom nising donjaba, Mampi Besha, Nogojwanang Dida. My spirit name is Ginumi Gwen, which is Golden Eagle Feather, and I am of the Beaver Clan, and I'm originally from Manitoulin Island, Wequemkong, and I reside in Nogojwanang territory. So I say miigwech, I'm going to do a prayer in the language, so I'll do that at this time. Aha Bosho, Ginumi Gwen Digo, Makwandinwema. Miigwech, Gishemnedo, Kin Kanegego, Gajitoin Mampia King. Miigwech ge, Mishomis Gizis, Gibe wase ajein mampi nangwa en sagijgak. Mi wachge nok mist bekizis. Me wase ajein gegin nidbekak. Mi wachge ishkak mekwe. Kinage goish mi gwen hen sagijgak. Memdege bish. Wesiak. Nonch. Kinage go mijem mishkekin. Menage nesewin. Migwecho denekia wabanong kinage goish migwe ke odenekia migwecho denekia ge jawanong migwechge de gom odenekia kinage goish take odenekia migwechge odenekia epangashmak nangabe onong migwechge kina odenekia emigwek odenekia migwech odenekia giwed nong migwechge kina migwek odenekia migwech nikit gijgong mama aking memdege migwech tish nikit. The prayer that I shared with you was to acknowledge our Creator, Yishem Nedo, our Creator that provides everything for us. I acknowledge our grandfather sun for shining on us today and every day. I acknowledge our grandmother moon for shining on us at night as well to give us that light in the dark. I acknowledge Mother Earth for providing everything for the animals, for the water, especially the water, and for the plants, the medicines that grow on Mother Earth, and also for the air that we breathe. And I acknowledge the four directions, east, south, west, and north, for all those beings that look after that direction and to provide and give us the things that we need to live in a good way. So I say miigwech again to Gejemnedo and to Mother Earth. So we're going to sing a song, and we're going to sing a water song. And this water song was brought to us by a woman named Doreen Day. And we're going to acknowledge the waters in this territory and say miigwech for those water spirits. So we're going to sing that at this time and say miigwech, because we need to start making that connection to the land. We need to go back to the land. We need to make connection to the water, because we need water to live. So I say miigwech. Nebe gizagego gimigwech wenemego gija wenemego 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 miigwech. So the water song, it talks about we love you, we love the water, We thank you, we give thanks to the water, and we respect the water. We have compassion for the water. And so that's the words of the song. Miigwech. Hi, hi.
Miigwech to Liz and Jada for that. At this time, we're going to introduce Daniel Secord from the Mississauga of New Credit to do a land acknowledgement.
Ani bojo. Asina nene Indigenous makwan dorem. Mississauga and Dow, Anishinaabe and Dow. Mioma onjobawan. Pshiniganigash questing and zibing and donjaba. I'd like to introduce myself a little bit. My name is Daniel Secord. My native name is Sin Anine, or Stoneman. And Makwan Dodem, sorry, of the Bear Dodem, our clan. From the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, where we're residing now, the latest village, I guess, or community, is returned to the Grand River. So that's the name of the land. A lot of people are starting to, use the names of the land and the community and things like that. So that's Grand River area. The Grand River's Pishiniganing is what they talk about, how it floods over and it kind of like cleans. So, but the land's all around the Grand River. That's where the community currently is. The reason why they call it New Credit is because our people had a village here for a long time, the Credit River. And when our community moved to the First Nation, where it is right now, they call it the New Credit. It's difficult to say, so. But there's no river there, just a grand near us. So we're only Anishinaabe group without a body of water right in the community. But yeah, I'll talk a little bit because we've had a really good opening, and I'm here to say Kidanmikum, or to welcome to everybody here on behalf of the Mississauga Nation. Of the Mississauga Nation too. Our people, there's a lot of different places where we had our communities. This is one of the areas here. Kabe Shinu Zibe, it's the Humber River. So this place right here, and they call it a Dubakong, or elderberry bushes. This was in this area. We have 13 different rivers. So this area, going a little bit further to Mississauga, talks about the geography, where the river meets the lake, so the outlet. So that's actually what that means, Mississauga. So the other Anishinaabe people, we introduce ourselves to where we reside. That was one of our favorite places. There's many places like Niagara, Kingston, Toronto. Like there's a lot of areas. So there's 6 communities currently. There's a group without a land base, and we have a lot of our people of our nation living off the First Nation, like in urban communities. And our people in Mississaugas, there's our traditional lands. So we're, as a person from the community, I'm not an elected official, I'm not a traditional leader, I'm not an elder or anything like that. I'm just a community member to come out to introduce ourselves. Because we have to do that a lot in our own territory, in our own lands. Within this area here, our people in Mississaugas, within the Anishinaabe, live between the lakes. So going up to North Shore, Manitoulin Island to Windsor, Detroit. So our people, particularly with the other Anishinaabe, is between the lakes. And but there's 5 regions that we're talking about. So amongst our people, this area here, this region is, they call it a place of the eagle, because most of the totem or the chiefs were of that totem. So other areas at the time, like Sault Ste. Marie, was a meeting place as well. There's another region, like Georgian Bay, at Dikwook, like some of the chiefs, there's a lot of chiefs there of the Caribou Totem. So like by Georgian Bay, Midland, there was the Geagle. It was a big totem for the chiefs and stuff. Anyways, there's 5 areas, but this area we talked about was a place of the eagle. So to say welcome to everybody. Oh, I'll share a little bit more because I guess what I'm here for is to introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about our community. Our community is an old community. So before Canada, before Confederation, a lot of our communities are really old. And to the different rivers and places where we have communities past and present, like on the Grand, one of our main communities that we moved from was Kitchener-Waterloo, so at the river mouth there. And we traveled a lot. Some communities you may be familiar with, like Mississauga River, so that's one of the important areas too, in the north. Scugog, Hiawatha, Elderville, Blind River, New Credit, Blind River. Anyways, there's 6 communities. To say anyways, miigwech, kidan mikum, welcome everyone, and on behalf of the community we say thank you for having us, and we're glad to be acknowledged in our own land and to have opportunity to host an event. So we say miigwech.
Thank you, Daniel. So right now we'd like to welcome up our Dean of Faculty of Social and Community Services and also the principal of our Lakeshore campus, Derek Stockley.
Thank you, Caitlin and Quay. And just a quick miigwech to Gina as well for the work that she's been doing in her role as acting director. And I know you have a fantastic team, and I know an event like this takes months and months to put together, so great job to everyone. Want to offer, as one of the deans, a welcome to IKG, a wonderful start so far. And as we were preparing for today and preparing for Lee's remarks, I was thinking about the time that Justice Sinclair visited us after the launch or the release of the Truth and Reconciliation Report and the 94 calls to action. And anyone who's seen Justice Sinclair talk, well, he's quick to acknowledge that these 94 calls to action are too much for any single person to hold, that it's the work of generations to come. And I love how he shares with those he speaks to this challenge to just commit to one. He says, just commit to one call to action. Imagine a world where we all just committed to one action. And I remember thinking 2 things. The first was how profoundly powerful that would be if we all just committed to one action, but it was everyone across this country. And the second thing I thought, I have to admit, is this can't be that hard. And Justice Sinclair just gave me permission to only focus on one call to action. Like this is incredible. There's 4 calls to action in education alone, 62 to 65. There's an entire section for someone like me in education to choose from. But that second piece that he asked us to do was to read the calls. He says, read the calls and then decide. And that's where he got me. Because it's through reading the calls to action, each single one, and appreciating the position I hold and appreciating the institution in which many of us work, realizing the commitment that we need to have in ensuring that every student and faculty and staff who walks through the door understands those 94 calls to action. And our goal, I think, maybe a 95th call, is to make sure that everyone who leaves here makes that commitment to that one commitment. IKG is just one of the ways we do this work. One of the ways we amplify what we're trying to do, one of the ways we celebrate, we inspire, one of the places we struggle, one of the places we heal, and one of the places we educate. And what I appreciate and relearn with every IKG I visit is how education is about learning and unlearning. and how important that cycle is. This year's theme is educating the heart, mind, body, and spirit, and it's such a great set of principles for the work that we all do at this institution, whether you're a teacher or a staff member or working in a different area. Today's keynote is Waneek Horn-Miller. We're going to hear from in a moment, and I'm very excited to hear what she has to share about restoring balance. And anyone who knows a little bit about Waneek's journey will know that this will come from an incredible lived experience. Later today, we have a wonderful panel focused on reclaiming wellness, a great time of the year to have this topic. They're going to do this through examining the connections between wellness and our entire ecosystem, and I think Gina referred to some of those connections in her opening remarks. The idea of how changes to our physical and emotional and spiritual and mental spheres can impact our entire ecosystem. And we can all learn from the questions that they're being asked to address. The questions like, what does it mean to be well? How to build meaning, strength, and purpose in our lives? And how can institutions support health and wellness? And then tonight, laughter, which is amazing. Laughter, which is always welcome. And that's just day 1 of 3 that's planned ahead for IKG. So it's hard to believe. I think you said 2014 was the first IKG, so I think that's 5 years. I'm not great at math today. That we launched, that Humber launched IKG, and it's hard to imagine Humber without IKG now. It's hard to imagine being an institute of learning and unlearning without gatherings like this. IKG, I think, is both a guide and an inspiration to all the work that we do, and I would like to say miigwech to all that made it possible. Thank you.
Okay, so everyone's going to have the opportunity to ask questions today, and there's going to be different ways that you can ask questions. So, one, you can download Slido. Is it Slido?
Slido.
Slido, there you go. It's an app on your phone, and you can ask questions there. Or you can follow us on Instagram, which is Humber_ARC, and you can ask a question there. Or at the end of our panel and our keynote, there will be opportunity to ask questions just from the audience.
So we can begin. And before we do that, I want to do a little intro. In the year 2000, there was a 9-year-old Caitlin and a 11-year-old Quay, because I'm 2 years older. I'm 2 years older. But there was younger versions of ourselves who saw an Indigenous woman on the cover of Time magazine. This woman inspired us to become athletes ourselves, and now through social media, she inspires us to become healthy, active women.
Okay, so it's an honor to introduce someone who's from my own community of Ganawage to share her insight on restoring balance. Please join me in welcoming the first Mohawk woman from Canada to ever compete in the Olympic Games. She's a 1999 Pan American Games gold medalist and MVP, and 2019 inductee into the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame. So please welcome Waneek Horn-Miller.
I never cease to blush when anybody mentions that Time magazine, because I'm just like, oh my God. But now that I've had 3 kids, I'm like, hey kids, this is what it all looked like before I had you guys. I want to thank the elders and the song to open the day. It was an honor, and thank you for setting the stage. I'm honored to follow that. And the welcoming to the Mississauga territory, that's always really, really important. This is not far from my father's community of Ohsweken, where my dad's from, but I grew up mostly in Ganawage, where my mom is from. And, I'm really, really honored to be here today at Humber to share my story. It's my story. I don't speak on behalf of anybody. I speak on behalf of myself. You might hear similar themes with other people, and you might, hear, but I don't proclaim to be a political leader or a traditional leader. I'm just me. And I've fell, I've stumbled, I picked myself up, I kept going, and I now at 43, almost 44, my birthday is on the 30th, so me and Billy Idol are turning older, and I might have a few things I've learned along the way, and so this is what I want to share with you today, just a bit of that lessons learned and a bit of my story. I want to also acknowledge there's some crew in the back there that I know from Ottawa, from A7G. They're all here. They came on the train. Saw actually one of my main babysitters back there who takes care of my kids and helps. And right, it takes a village to raise and to get a chance to do the work I do and get to speak. I work with Manitoba Mucklucks. A lot of them are working for Manitoba Mucklucks. I rely a lot on the community to help me with my children, and that's a big honor that I get that opportunity. So thank you, Kaylee, for being so awesome with my kids. So my story. So today, let's get into it. Finding my path. It's interesting because we're talking about wellness. We're talking about, the words today in Indigenous communities is wellness, it's reconciliation, it's all of these things, and I find it interesting, like looking back on my own path and where I've come and how, the journey I've traveled. Now that I'm a mom too, and trying to create a world, trying to create a country where my children are safe, where my children are, cherished, valued, where their worldview is considered important. I worked in a lot of capacities in my life. I worked at McGill University for 6 years, running the Native Student Center, running things just like this. And I understand the value and the importance of colleges and universities and how that can be places where, I often used to say, students, this is where your mind is the most open. This is the time where we can impact the way you are going to head out into that world before you get stuck in all the concrete jungle of where you're heading and your mind starts to become a little bit less flexible. This is the time where you are going to be learning and absorbing ways of being and maybe getting that spark on creating something that has never been created on this planet before. And it's interesting, we talk about Canada and we talk about this country, and I'm very passionate about the future because I have these children, and I think so much. One of those things that you learn, you hear it so much from your parents and your grandparents. Oh, just wait till you become a mother. You'll move mountains, and then you become that mother. And there's absolutely no words in English for what you feel when you first look at that child, and you say, "I will do anything in my power, anything," and I mean anything, to make you safe, to keep you safe, to make this place better for you. And it's something that isn't just words, it's like this whole DNA, and you connect to all of your ancestors, all those women in your past who looked at their children and said, "I'll do anything, anything," and you're carrying on that desire to do anything. And so I think about Canada, and I think about, my experience in my 43 years in this experiment, or in this experience that we call Canada. And I think about what's going on in the world. I've traveled around the world as an Olympic athlete. I've seen many, many different places. I've experienced and lived in many different places. And I think to myself, we talk about Canada as being a multicultural. We strive to be a multicultural society. So what does that really mean? And I think that you see in the world, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this down further in my speech, we're trying to create something that's never existed on this planet. And that's either a terrifying thought or an exciting thought. We have to stop thinking that there was a time where everything was perfect, when everybody was here living in harmony and we were just peaceful, like all of those cards you see that say Thanksgiving, and we were just sharing food with each other, and everything was perfect. Well, as a Haudenosaunee woman, where my people and our people in this area were some of the first to come in contact, we know that that wasn't the reality. And so a bit of that journey, I think about that, and I think about the challenge and the possibility of creating a country where no matter what race, religion, sexual orientation, or identity, economic level, you can live your life to the greatest possibility. That you could be your greatest self. You could live your best life. Is that possible? And so, I think a lot about that when I look at the lives of my children. Who are you going to be? Who are you going to be when you're my age? And will you be able to be weightless? Will you be able to be free? Will you be able to be inspired to be the best you? And I think about that. And so this has been my journey, getting to this point. So I think about reconciliation, and I talked about when that word was thrown out into the Canadian consciousness about, 4 years ago? Trudeau said, we're living in the era of reconciliation. And everybody was like, what does that mean? Well, if you Google it, because it's funny, because I grew up in the era of Encyclopedia Britannica, right? Go look at the encyclopedias, and you'd have to be like the paper-thin paper. You'd be looking for the word, right? Well, if you Google it now, this is the first thing that comes up, the restoration of friendly relations. And like I've said, that is not a realistic understanding of what reconciliation means. Because this friendly relations, it wasn't like that. It was conflict, almost from the very beginning. Conflict of worldviews, conflict of societal understandings, religion, everything was in conflict. But if you look at the second thing that comes up, the action of making one view or belief compatible with another, that actually speaks more to what we're trying to do. Not just between Indigenous and non-Indigenous, but so many different people that are coming to Canada and trying, and we say, yes, come and be, don't change. We want you to be your multicultural best, but don't be too different. You must be Canadian. I'm originally from Quebec, right? Kahnawake in Quebec, where they are starting to outlaw hijabs, where they're starting to think about making people take values tests, right, when they come to the country. I'm like, well, whose values? Because they definitely aren't the same as my values, right? So you think about that. The action of making one view or belief compatible with another. But reconciliation is something that we practice every single day. If you're in a relationship, if you have a partner, you are trying to reconcile something. Or you just give up and go, happy wife, happy life, right? But that's not the way, you're constantly reconciling. And I think about that, and I think about, when I look at the synonyms of reconciliation, and I was trying to find some place for myself, an understanding. Well, you look at all these, and what really stood out to me was peace and balance. So all these squaring, harmonizing, agreement, compromise, understanding. But peace and balance, if you know, my understanding of the Haudenosaunee way is of the great law of peace, right? If you've heard about the great law of peace, prior to contact, we were at war with each other. We were battling with each other. And to the point where we were going to eradicate each other. So we finally, the Ganawida came and brought the great law of peace to our people. And for our children, we found a way to live together under that great tree of peace. So that it's symbolized by this great, great tree of peace. And at the top sits an eagle, right? That eagle is supposed to look all over the land to look for any danger and let us know. But the roots of that tree, the right white roots of peace, are supposed to go to all corners of the world. And if you follow those roots back to the tree of peace, and you're willing to follow the rules and the laws of the great law of peace, then you can find safety. You can be safe. But the basis of that is we understood that when we were not at peace, something was out of balance. And you can even talk about yourself. When you feel unsettled, when you feel something's wrong, you ask yourself, the elders will always say, what's out of balance? What are you neglecting? What are you not taking care of? So often in many, many Indigenous cultures, a lot of our ceremonies are about rebalancing ourselves, rebalancing things, taking care of that balance and how we need to maintain that balancing. So when I saw this as part of that sort of reconciliation and understanding from a personal, physical well-being level to my family, to my nation, and always seeking balance and seeking the great peace. Doing those ceremonies to always seek the great peace. That's what I understood. But this understanding also comes along with a word in my language that was taught to me as a young woman. Now, I'm by no means fluent. I'm learning, always learning. It's amazing when my mom gets mad at me, I understand every single word. It's like coming out of my memory. I'm like, oh yeah, she's mad. But this is a word that she was talked a lot about when we were kids. And you know, ganarung kwatsara. And she's always telling me how English is just not a complex enough language to really explain what this means. You'll often hear speakers talk about that. It's never complex enough. They're trying to use a limited language to explain a really complex worldview. And it's in our words. That's why language is so important. It's in our worldview is in these words. And it's the ultimate power and energy in the universe. And it's the power of love. And my mother would say to me as a little kid, when you make decisions, Waneek, you need to make decisions based on love. And she would say to us, the only thing you truly own in this world, that you come into the world, is your body, your mind, your spirit. That's it. Everything else is just it's window dressing. That body, that mind, that spirit is all yours, and it's the thing you take with you when you go. So you need to take care of it. You need to honor it. And she would tell us, you know, she would teach us, it's my job as a mother to teach you how to take care of it with food and water and exercise. But your spirit, she said, you have to take care of that spirit. You have to honor that spirit. And by taking care of your body and your spirit and your mind, protecting that mind. And she would say to me all the time when I would go to school, do well, but don't get educated. Anybody ever hear that before? Don't get educated. And I'm like, what does that mean? Her father said that to her. Go to school, do well, get their A's, but don't get educated. Meaning, go there, learn how they understand the world, but don't make those opinions yourself. Always question, always ask why. Why do you think that? Why is that the way I should do it? Why? And if they can't give you a good enough answer that satisfies you, then don't accept it. That's what my mother would say. She would say, you know, protecting that ability to have your own mind and your own spirit is your job as a human being on this earth. It's your job. And teaching other people, if you show respect for yourself, you're teaching others how to respect you, right? You need to show others how to respect your body and your mind, your spirit. And that's by showing your best self, your most powerful self. And, you know, making those decisions based on love, you know, when I was a teenager, you know, as a little kid, you're like, I don't understand what she means. Like, I want cookies, but I probably shouldn't have the whole bag. And, you know, like, these are things that you think of when you're like 5 and 6. When you're a teenager, I understood what that meant. So I really, really like to date the bad boy. How many of you guys like to date the bad boy or the bad girl? You know? The ones that you want to fix. The troubled ones. You know those interesting ones that are that troubled person with the black cloud. Oh, just so sexy. I want to date him, and I'm going to fix him. And then you realize you can't really fix anybody but yourself. And then the fights start, and the hurt starts. And my mom would say to me, Monique, are you showing love for yourself by letting him make you feel that way? And I'd be like, no. And it made sense. Okay, time to move on. Time to get out of that situation and move on. And that was a really, really important lesson about including drugs and alcohol. Waneek, are you showing love for your body by hurting it in that way? You need to take care of it. You want to go to the Olympics. Is this going to help? Trust me, you show up to national team training camp hungover, you're not going to be the best in the pool. I understood that, right? But learning those things and making decisions based on love, you know, but she'd always say to me, there's a place for anger. There's a place for that. When I'd be all weepy and sad and heartbroken about something, she'd say, don't get sad, get mad. Get mad. Because mad gets you up off your butt and doing something, right? But if you stay mad, if you stay angry, what happens when you stay angry and when you stay mad at somebody or something? That anger grows. It starts to infect every thought. It starts to cannibalize your whole thought process. It becomes like a cancer. If you've ever been in a fight with someone you really care about, you only can think about that every day, how upset you are, how angry you are. She'd always say, you need to find your way back to love. Find a place for compassion and understanding inside of you. Try to understand why they're mad, why you're angry, what's going on. And my mom was she was so pragmatic. She would say, okay, what are you upset about? She'd pull out a piece of paper and she write a line, pros and cons of this situation. And I'm like 8 years old. I'm like, well, kicked me in the schoolyard. Bad. No, what did you learn? Good. And then she said, okay, and we make a strategic plan to get out of this problem, right? So this would be proved to be one of the most important lessons that would guide me through my life. And it would be a word, a really, really important word, but a philosophy that would be central. Now, here's me and my dream. Playing in the best game of my life at the Olympics. These guys were toddlers watching me play water polo. But, okay, so a little bit behind this. I played this was against the Americans. We always loved to play the Americans. I scored a hat trick, always up to fight the Americans. But a bit of an interesting background behind this picture. So anybody play water polo in here? Any water polo players? Anybody know what it is? Yes, okay, good. Because often I used to get asked, does it hurt the horses? And I would say, no, I don't hurt horses, okay? That's a polo. Anyway, so in my sport, it is, it's a contact sport, and we grab onto each other. So we don't wear the cute little sequined, nice little, fancy little bathing suits that the synchro girls wear, okay? We wear these big, ugly numbers that are up to here, down to here. They're made of polyester. They stretch. They're like 50, 60 bucks. They get ripped apart in games. It's because it's a contact sport. Well, I would spend most of my times at tournaments sewing up my suit between games, wearing multi-layered suits because of that, right? So before Sydney, our Speedo sponsor said, we have designed a suit you cannot grab. Huge, like game changer. Because for someone like me, I play a sport where I don't know what they feed them in Australia, but the whole team was 6'1", 205 pounds. All right? At my most muscular, I was 165 pounds, okay? And I'm only like 5'8". So I was that little gnat that would swim around fast. My job was to win the swim off. I was a sprinter and kind of like be mean and, score goals and all that kind of stuff. So, but if someone got a hold of me, it was bad news, right? It would be a battle. So a suit like this would really, really affect me in a good way. So these suits were made of neoprene. That wetsuit material. And he said, don't worry, you can't rip them. They were like $250 US. So back then it was like 1,000 Canadian or something. I'm like, what are these lined with gold or something? What's all? They're so expensive. Like they aren't even gonna last like one game. He's like, don't worry. You'll wear one, won't get a rip. The second will be like a nice little souvenir from the Olympics. We're like, okay. So get in this game, and we have a shot clock in water polo, right? So my job as a fast swimmer is to lead the counterattack. So as the shot clock is going 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, when we're on defense, I'm kind of positioning myself on my player to grab them, kick off, and go, lead the counter, get the pass, score, and, win the game. That was my job. So here I am, getting ready, and the shot clock's going 10, 9, 8, 7. I grab the girl, kick off her, go, swim. And I suddenly feel like I'm slowing down. I'm not sure really what. And then I look down, and the entire front section of my suit is missing. And I look back, and there's an American girl that's like, yeah, I got it right here. And I'm like, oh my God, where there's a will, there's a way, right? Anyway, so I had to play 20-something thousand people around us. We get a stoppage and play 30 seconds. My coach says, change your suit. You can't be half naked playing water polo. I'm like, okay, but where do I go? There's nowhere for me to go. I am not getting out half naked to change, right? He's like, okay, girls, just gather around here and change really fast. So they all gathered around. I change. Thought nothing of it. Well, I didn't know that on Australian television there was a late night show that liked to make fun of the Olympics. And their favorite footage was the underwater cameras at the water polo game. So it was on repeat. Look at this girl, she can't keep her suit on. No. It was hilarious. Anyway, thank God, like, so we wear caps with our numbers on it, right? So I didn't put my head in the water, right? So I was like, oh my God, thank goodness they don't know who it is. Anyway, this is me at achieving my dream. But this dream started many years before me. And it started with this woman. This is my mom. My mom was born in 1940. She was born actually in Brooklyn, New York, because her dad was an iron worker. And she was born into a time where you needed a pass to leave the reserve, where many kids were being taken and put into residential schools. They often sent Mohawks all the way across the province to Anishinaabe territory to go to residential school. We couldn't vote. If you did get a university education, doctor, lawyer, engineer, you became non-Indigenous. If you served in the military, you became non-Indigenous. This was the reality, a very hyper-political reality of being an Indigenous person in Canada. And my mother was born into this. And when she hit her 20s, she happened to coincide with the civil rights movement that was happening in both Canada and the United States. And she became one of Canada's very first Native rights activists. And I didn't know anything about that, okay? So I was terrified of my mother. My mother was a single mother. My dad went to residential school. I didn't grow up with my father. But my mother was of the era where she would constantly say to us, I am not your friend, I am your mother. How many of you guys have someone like, your mother was like that, right? I'm not your friend, I am your mother. And she would say that, and I'd be like, oh, nowadays, it's like you gotta be their best friend, you gotta be their mother, you gotta be their authority figure. It's impossible, right? Well, my mother was like scary woman for me as a kid. Loving, but scary. And I remember, so my mom's known for doing a few things. I remember showing up, grade 7, my first class was social studies. I just swam competitive for 2 hours that morning. Teacher says, it's movie time. I'm going to show you a movie. I'm like, awesome, it's nap time. Yes. So he rolls out the old projector. So it's before the, even VHS, before VHS. I think there might have been VHS. On the rich schools, there was VHS. We still had the old NFB film, and you'd have to roll out these things. So it took the teacher like 20 minutes to set up the TV, and I'm like getting all comfy, getting ready for having a nap. The lights go down, and this movie comes up. I'm almost asleep, and I hear my mother's voice. I'm like, she knows I'm sleeping. Holy crap. And I'm looking around, where is she? I look up on the screen. It's a movie called You Are on Indian Land. And it's about the 1968 blockading of the international bridge at Aguesasne, which is near Cornwall, Quebec, right? Cornwall, Ontario. So Aguesasne, for those of you who don't know, is a Mohawk community, the second largest Mohawk community. It is half in Canada, half in the States, half in Ontario, half in Quebec. Can you imagine the nightmare of like in that community? So basically, I don't know how many of you guys know about the Jay Treaty. You know the Jay Treaty? The Jay Treaty states that Indigenous territories predate that of the US-Canadian border. They were not honoring this. So if you wanted to go to the other side of the community to visit family, you're going through an international border. They'd often give you a hard time, search your car, harass you, whatever. So my mom and a whole bunch of other radicals, they called them back then, decided to blockade the bridge. I don't know why they chose January, but they chose January. And there's my mom, like light years before we were even born. My mom was not a very big woman, okay? She modeled at the time of Twiggy. So Twiggy, right? Do you remember first 98-pound model that came? Went from Marilyn Monroe to Twiggy. And my mother was like considered a heavy model at 115 pounds. And there she was getting arrested by the OPP wearing this big fur hat and fringe white jacket. And yeah, of course, she's like stylish, right? Getting arrested. And they're trying to shove her in this cop car. She got charged with assaulting 22 OPP officers. Now, if you know my mom, 5 for sure. For sure. But not 22. She went to court. She was going to bring up the issues around the Jay Treaty, but they dropped the charges, right? So that film is still, you can still see it online. It's a pretty cool film about my mom. And then in and around the same time, our Indian agent in our community signed an agreement with the 33 municipalities around us. So we're on the south shore of Montreal, right? Signed an agreement to dump their garbage in our community, a dump. And so in the beginning, my mom would say, like, oh, they dump like linoleum flooring and suddenly everybody get new floors, you know? Sometimes they dump like, you know, antiques and then we'd like haul them in and we'd refinish them. We still have a table that my mother did that too. She refinished this table. And they even dumped like a whole shipment of Labatt's beer because the labels were upside down and backwards. And then they like, a bunch of Mohawks set up a bar in the middle of the dump and sold beer, you know? But as the dump grew, so did the rats and mice, right? Started to run through the homes, bite people. They started to complain, okay, you got to move this dump. And then, oh, sorry, we've signed a 99-year lease, which if you're Indigenous, you know those are the banes of our existence, 99-year leases. So my mom's like, nobody's going to move this. We're locked in legally. She says, well, I got to do something. And in that era, my mom was one of the most known Indigenous people in Canada. She was the most photographed woman in 1969 in Canada. So she calls up Indian Affairs and says to the deputy minister, I want to come and do Indigenous or Indian sensitivity training back then. And he goes, oh, what a great idea. Yes, Continental, come on down. So before she leaves, my Uncle Frank, my 3 great aunts, they live trapped a whole bunch of rats and mice. Not killed, live trapped. My mom caught a really special rat in her house, but it died. But she put it in a nice Ziploc bag and let it stew for about 3 weeks in her fridge. The day comes, they head off to do this Indian sensitivity training. And my mom, my Uncle Frank, they all put it in a big burlap bag in this box, stick the box in the car. 3 aunties all go. They get in this car, go to Ottawa. They get brought into this beautiful room. You know, all the upper echelon of Indian Affairs are there. So all the directors and ADMs and all these people are there with their assistants. And my mom, who had no clue how to do sensitivity training, cultural sensitivity training, she's like, I don't know what to do. So she's stuck in a movie called Minook of the North. Anybody ever heard of Minook of the North? The famous Inuit movie that was staged, right? Like, remember those old NFB films? It was like dark lighting and like the narrator's like, and they're going to disappear, but we're catching them on film so we can remember them. You know, like that kind of film. So my mom's sitting there and they're all intently watching this film. Film ends and the deputy minister says, oh, thank you, Continetta. I feel so sensitive. You know, thank you. And Mama goes, whoa, wait. I want to explain what it's like to be an Indian on a reserve now. And she says to my Uncle Frank, bring the box over. And puts the box on this big table. And he goes, your mom starts talking. She pulls out her purse. And she pulls out this rat out of this bag. She's dangling the rat, talking about a dump. Would you put a dump next to your house? No. It's because we're Indians. Brr, 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 you know? and she's wagging this dead rat around, and everybody's like, ah. And my mom and my Uncle Frank, he says, do you remember what it's like the pants looked like in the 60s? And I'm like, I don't know. I wasn't alive. He said, well, everybody wore big bell bottoms. Everybody. And he said, even the men in suits had big bell bottoms on. And I knew as your mom was shaking that rat, I should probably tuck my pants into my socks. Because she dropped the rat, and it went splat, and everybody screamed, and the box woke up. And it started to move. And nobody noticed that the box was moving. And then it fell off the side, hit the ground, and all the rats and mice went pouring out. And he said those pants were like super highways for those rats, right up their pants. And everybody's screaming, and my mom was like, I couldn't have planned this better. Anyway, guess what? The dump was moved. Imagine that, right? So my mom, how can I explain it? This is her trying to get into Buckingham Palace to inform the Queen she is claiming England in the name of the Mohawk Nation. And he goes, what are you talking about? She's like, well, you came and you did it to us, and there were millions of us, so I'm doing it back to you. And to this day, she will tell you that England is Mohawk territory. So she was an old woman when she started having kids, 31. All right, that's grandma territory almost, right? Like, how many of you guys know a really, really beautiful, young, 35-year-old grandma? I got all kinds of cousins like that, right? And my mom was 31, and when she started having kids, this is what she was going to have the next generation of disease-free, high-achieving warriors. That was her plan. And when she had 4 daughters, so she knew definitely the world out there because of her activism. And she understood that, yes, we were going to face all kinds of things, racism, all this stuff. But she really only had control over the world that she was providing for us. So she made 2 really important decisions. One, no drugs or alcohol were allowed in our home. So I'm talking not even cigarettes. I was born in the 70s, people. Chain smoking was like an Olympic sport back then, you know? Everybody smoked. And how many of you guys remember smoking on planes? Remember smoking on planes? Remember when they outlawed smoking on planes? I was expecting planes to just fall out of the sky, you know, like people having nick fits and going bonkers, right? Well, my mom wouldn't allow anybody, even on her property, to smoke a cigarette. And the second decision she made was she put us into sports. And she, as a single mother, she got a job in Ottawa. She moved us from Ganawage. She moved us right across the street from the downtown Y. And she had rented a 2-bedroom apartment. And she rented out the 2 bedrooms to 2 elders. And with that extra money, she got us a full membership at the YMCA. And she chose sports for us that were not judged sports. She didn't want us, she always said, I didn't want your Indianness to get in the way. It was you against the clock. That's what I wanted the measure to be. So she chose swimming and running for us. We became competitive swimmers and competitive runners. And my mom has never, oh, this is a picture of me. I'm the 3rd born, okay? So there's like no baby pictures of me. My older sister, no problem. 50,000 studio photos. Any oldest children in here? Come on, raise your hand, be proud. Yeah, there's none of me. I look surprised. My mother has never said to me, ever, 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 you have to be an Olympic athlete. All she would say to me was, I don't care what you choose to do, you do it to the best of your capabilities. None of this half-assedness crap. Because you don't come from a people who did things half-assed. We didn't have the luxury of doing things half-assed. If you didn't feel like going and set a trap perfectly the first time, you wouldn't catch anything. Your family would starve. If you were too lazy to go collect firewood, your family would freeze to death. You come from a people that did things perfectly the first time. And remember that. Half-assed. I remember going to a youth conference back in the day out in Saskatchewan, and this elder was just giving her to the youth, this Cree guy, and he says, what's this with this half-assedness? No. We had to come up with a new Cree word for half-assed. Mamasis. He was so pissed. You don't come from a people who did things half-assed. You know, and so my mom wanted us to do the best of our capabilities, and she wanted us to learn some really important things. Oh, this is the picture of us. First Halloween in Ottawa. And you can see my sisters are both wearing a Montreal Olympic overalls. She wanted us to learn 3 really important things. One was perseverance. Now, perseverance is really hard to teach even more. We're living even more in an instant gratification culture. You know, with all this, real TV, you see the Voice. All these people, wow, I could do that too. Like, no, that's been 15 years. This person's been working in Nowheresville singing, and now you're seeing the end of it. It is so hard to teach perseverance. Perseverance is that stick-with-itness. It took me 17 years to get to the Olympics. I did not know I was going until the very last year because you know what? You have to qualify. You actually have to qualify your spot. So you could have the dream. There are millions of people in the world that dream to go to the Olympics. They never get there. They train like dogs, and it boils down to a race or a game. And for me, it boiled down to one game against the Americans, and we won by 1 goal to beat them for that spot. So perseverance. You know, we are understanding that a goal, if goals were easy, if dreams were easy, we could all go into Walmart, buy a 6-pack of Olympic gold medals, pass them around, we'd all be Olympic gold medalists. But why are dreams so amazing? Because they're so hard. They are so rare. They are so life-changing. She wanted us to learn about respect. She knew we were going to head out. Whatever it was we wanted to do, we weren't only going to be with Native people. So she would say to us, you know, like in my mom's world, like, so Mohawk women, any Mohawk women in here? Raise your hands loud and proud. There we go. So you're told by any Mohawk woman that as a Mohawk woman, we're the most powerful ever on the planet, like a superhero, my mom would say, because we own the home, own the children, own the food. We can put a chief in power. We can take a chief out of power. We can declare war. We can call our warriors back. She says, there's nothing better than that, man. But she would also tell me, if I ever hear you making fun of another nation of people and calling it pride, I'm going to kick your butt. That's not pride. That's racism. Because before you're a Mohawk, you're a human being. And you're going to have to go out there, and you are going to have to find human connection with other people. You're going to have to find that bond. You're going to need help. And if you always keep, oh, I'm Native, you're not, you're over here, it might be the thing that stops you from achieving your dream. And in my case, I was the only Native person on the entire Canadian U.S. Olympic team. Can you imagine if I said, sorry, can't hang out with you, not Native enough? I probably would have never gone to the Olympics, right? So that human connection that was so important to her, and finding that common humanity. And achievement, right? Don't do anything half-assed. I don't want to hear this, just good enough, not acceptable. That's what she would say to us. Kind of hardcore, but if you know old school Indian women, they're like that. They're tough. So, you know, my mom also was really adamant about showing us what was possible. I remember in '84, and you got to remember, this was pre-internet, pre-cell phones. If someone didn't show you, you didn't know about it. And I remember watching Alwyn Morris, a Mohawk from my community, win gold. First Indigenous person to win gold for Canada. And I remember when he got up on that podium, I was 8 years old, and he stood up after getting his medal, and he lifted that eagle feather above his head. And I literally thought he knew I was watching. I was like, oh my God, he knows I'm watching him. And my mom looked at me, she says, so what do you think, Waneek? What do you think? And, you know, I was a kid that always said, you know, one day I was going to be a rock star. I still want to be a rock star. Okay. One day I was going to be a fireman. One day I was going to do this. Always, you hear kids say that stuff all the time. And what do we often do? We're like, oh, that's really cute. Man, you pat them on the head and you don't take them seriously. I looked at her and I said, Mom, I want to do that. I want to go to the Olympics. And she got down on her knee and she looked me in the eye. She said, Waneek, you can do it and I'll help you. And, you know, that became one of the most important things. When I talk to people about the value of sport in our communities, that Olympic dream saved my life. It gave me direction. It gave me somewhere to work towards. And he gave me a world where the glass ceiling was shattered. First time I ever saw an Indigenous person the best in the world. And that meant so much to me. That same year, a really awesome movie came out. Any of you alive in '84 might have seen a movie called Running Brave. And it was about a man named Billy Mills from Pine Ridge, South Dakota, one of the 3 poorest counties. I'm not talking poorest reservations, counties in the United States. He went on to qualify for the Olympic team in the men's 10,000 meters. He qualified for the final. He had never won a major international race in his life. He was a good NCAA athlete, but he had never won a major race. And I want to show you his race because it has been the very last lap. The finish of that race has been voted one of the top 10 finishes in Olympic history. And I hope I can do it. Do we have sound? Sound. Give me sound. Do you have sound? Oh, not mute. Not mute. Oh, okay. I'm going to be that person. Okay, there you see him. Number 122. You see him? 722. So 10,000 meters is a 10K. All right? That's a very long race. And he's coming around. So in front of him is, at the lead, is the defending champion. Behind him is the world record holder. And he's in third position. And he's at the 200-meter mark. As he turns the corner, one of the rules of track and field, if anybody's ever run track, is what do? You never get in the scrum. You stay away from people. Well, as you see him coming around the corner, he's like, well, I am going to get right in the middle of the scrum. And you see him coming around the road. This last 100 meters, and he's running, and he's running, and he's running, and he gets hit. You don't see it, but he actually gets hit, knocked out. But at the very end, he sprints by. And he becomes Olympic champion. It's so much better when you hear the actual commentator, but I do my best. So one of the things that I remember, I got a chance to work with Billy Mills. And I remember asking him, I always wanted to ask after seeing this movie. So you were in third position. You had secured a bronze medal. I've always been told, never get in the scrum. What would have happened if someone had tripped you? You would have been disqualified. You would have lost that medal. What are you, crazy? And he looks at me and he said, well, sometimes when you have a dream, you will put 98% of yourself on the table. You're willing to invest 98% of yourself. You hold back just a bit of yourself, that 2%. He says, do you know why you do that? It's in case you fail. You have to pick yourself up. You have to reconstitute yourself. And he said, I knew that if I put that last 2% on the table, I could have tripped or I could become Olympic champion. And I wasn't willing to live the rest of my life not knowing if that was possible. And then he said one of the most awesome things I'd ever heard. And he said, you know what the best thing about being a Native American is? Because he's American. He said, I come from a people that even if I tripped and fell, they would have picked me up, dusted me off, and kept me going forward. So what do I have to be afraid of? And you know, I think about that. I never forgot that. Going after your dreams is something that will change you so fundamentally. But it's the courage of putting everything that you are on the table that is the most terrifying part of it. But also knowing, because we're clan people, we're community people. What are we afraid of? We come from people that will help us. And I know this from my experiences. But dreams are very hard because things happen along the way that can stop you in your tracks. And for me, it was when I was 14. And 14, it's a very kind of, I mean, I have nieces and nephews. I love my 14-year-olds and everybody, but it's a pretty, like, loopy time, right? Like, they're like, whatever, you know? They're just not super serious. Well, I got thrust into the middle of one of the most historical, I didn't know this at the time, experiences. And, you know, that summer, I saw a lot of really amazing things. You know, you also have to remember this was pre-Google, pre-internet, pre-social media. Can you imagine if there was social media at the time? It would have been wild. But we were fighting to stop the expansion of a golf course from 9 holes to 18 holes that would have expanded over a traditional burial ground. And it ended up expanding from the community of Gunnesadage, which is our sister community, to include our community of Gunnawage, because we blockaded the bridge that connected over 500,000 commuters to the city of Montreal. It started off with the Sûreté de Quebec, and then almost 8,000 Canadian Armed Forces were sent to our communities to surround us. And I saw some of the most terrifying things that summer. You know, I knew racism as a kid. I just thought it was something stupid kids did, or just kind of ignorant adults did. I remember seeing race riots, nightly race riots, where people were burning Mohawks in effigy. And they just hated me, not because of what I did or who I was. It's because of what I was. That was terrifying. I remember watching as our elders' cars were leaving the community and they were stoned by protesters, and police just stood by and did nothing. That was terrifying. Sends such a strong message to a young person that it doesn't matter who I am, what I achieve. Being Indigenous we are not on equal footing. And you know, I did see some amazing things. I saw our people rise, wake up across the country. You know, protest camps started sprouting across the country in cities. People woke up. People started to ask, question. I saw women lead, direct our warriors. I remember that. Tell them where to go, what to do. And they listened. That meant a lot to me as a young Indigenous woman. The standoff lasted 78 days. And it was the first time that Indigenous issues were on the front page of every newspaper, and it headlined every newscast for 78 days. So you couldn't hide. People were like, treaties? Indigenous rights? Section 35? Human rights? What's all that all about? Canadians you couldn't hide under a rock and pretend it didn't exist. And on September 26th, we decided to end the crisis. And I was put in the front. You can see there's me, my little sister. And I was put there, given all the ID and money, and all the parents told me was just get the kids out safely. They didn't want us to get mixed up in with all the warriors. And we were leaving. It was getting to be late, about 5:30 at night. Sun was going down. It was September. And we had negotiated with the Army that we were going to go out the front gates, get on the buses. They were going to take us to a military prison and process us. But right before we were leaving, they pushed the media barricade back about 400 meters. And we were afraid that if the media didn't see us, anything could happen. A gunshot could happen and we would be killed. So we decided to walk to that front gate, take a right-hand turn. There was 3 levels of barbed wire that surrounded us. We found a corner where there was only 2 levels of barbed wire. And I had my little sister's hand, and I was walking with her. We were singing a song, a longhouse song, trying to keep her calm. And when we got to that corner, someone pulled out a spinal board and they put it on the barbed wire. And people started to pour out onto the highway. And all the Army started to grab people and certain Mohawks, and fights broke out. And I remember it was like this chaos just broke out around me. And my little sister, she was holding onto my hand. She was 4. And we got there, and there was this young, non-Indigenous man, a soldier, standing there with a big gun. And he was standing there frozen, looking around. And my little sister looked up at him, and she saw that gun, and, you know, she started to make a sound that, like, I'm a mom now, so I know the sounds that kids make, right? Like, I'm hungry, I'm mad, I'm irritated, I'm frustrated, I'm pissed. But there's a very special sound that a child makes when they think they're going to die. And she started to scream and scream and scream and look at him. And I remember grabbing her hand, and I said, he's not going to hurt us. He's not going to hurt us. And I put my hand on his chest, and I pushed him backwards. And he took a step back, and he let me walk out in front of him. And I walked out onto the highway. And I was intercepted by a soldier But I kept fighting. I said, if I could just get my sister to the press barricade, she'll be safe. That's all I could think about. But when I got to the press barricade, I remember seeing a soldier there that about 2 weeks earlier didn't allow my grade 10 school books in. Not that I really wanted them, but I'm principal. And I remember pulling my sister behind me and going, I know you. And I went like that. And right at that moment, I got hit in the chest. Like, you know that feeling when you get punched and you get the wind knocked out of you? So I got hit and I went forward. And then someone pushed me back. And my little sister landed on top of me and I fell on my back. Right at that moment, a photo was taken. I never understood why I didn't remember this in a consistent memory. I remembered it like flashes. I remember it like pictures, lights, faces. It was only many years later when I finally got some therapy in my 20s, I was told that sometimes when you're in extreme duress, your mind will shut down. It'll either break or it'll shut down. And that's what happened. But I do remember how I felt. I felt so much anger, pain, sadness, frustration, fear, that I felt like my body was just going to explode. And after this picture was taken, someone grabbed the back of my jacket and dragged me back with my little sister on top of me to where my mother was. And I handed my little sister, they had been circled in a ring of soldiers. I handed her to my mother, and then I looked down, and I was covered in blood. I didn't know that the order had been given to put bayonets on the ends of their weapons. And when I got to see a doctor 22 hours later, he said, you know, you're very lucky to be alive, because it hit me in the chest, right at the sternum, and went sideways. So I have a really, really big scar right here, right over my heart. Many years later, when I was in World Championships in Australia, I was in the shower after a game playing, and this Australian girl I know comes up and goes, is that a breast implant scar? I'm like, don't you think I would have paid for more than a negative A? And she goes, well, what is that? I said, I got stabbed by a Canadian soldier, and I lived. Which in my sport, really important to scare the crap out of people, okay? Especially if you're small. And she's like, what? You know, and for many, after this picture was taken, I suffered very bad PTSD. And back then, nobody knew what that was. We now know because of what soldiers are coming back with from Afghanistan, and we know about PTSD. I didn't know. Panic attacks, anxiety attacks. And for 6 days, I locked myself in my room, covered the windows, and I stayed there. And my mother came in on the 6th day, and she sat down on my bed, and she says, so what do you want to do, Waneek? I said, I don't know. I want to stay here. I want to stay here. I'm safe. And she said, well, you know, no one would ever blame you. But you had this dream of going to the Olympics. And she said, if you give up now, you're handing that dream over to that soldier, and you will be his victim for the rest of your life. But no one will ever blame you, and I'll support whatever decision you make. And she got up off the bed and she started to walk towards my door, and she had her hand on the doorknob. And then she turned around and she looked at me, she said, but you remember, I did not raise you to be anybody's victim. And then she left. Probably not the clinical way you're supposed to handle someone in acute PTSD. However, it's what I needed to hear. I left my room and I went back to practice. I walked on deck. My entire team was non-native. If I hadn't learned about the humanity, that I was a human being, I would have never been able to see beyond their skin color. I went back, and 10 years to the day that this picture was taken, I was at the Olympics, and I was co-captain of the Olympic team. And if you'd asked me, where are you going to be in 10 years, I probably would have said, I hope not in prison. I hope not dead. I never thought I'd be at the Olympics. And over those years, I struggled, and I cried, and I dealt with a system that didn't like me, understand me, nor want me. And every time I wanted to quit, every time I wanted to give in, every time I got sick of it, I would look at my little sister and I would say, I don't love myself enough to keep going, but I love you. And if I quit now, I'm showing you how to quit. And if I want you to be successful, I have to be successful. So I would go back one more time for one more practice, and I would try a little harder. And you know, I think about, and I know we got to end, so I want to actually fast forward. I have all these other awesome slides, which I just never get to, but I will talk to you at a later date about it all. Anyway, I have had an incredible opportunity. Don't look at this, it's awful. And I'm actually going to escape out of this so I want to go to show you my family. But because I know we don't have time. I think about my wellness and my balance. I think about what drove me. And now it's funny because, you know, getting inducted into the Canada Sports Hall of Fame, it was an uncomfortable experience. It was an awesome experience. But those times when it was so hard and I was so alone, you never thought one day you're going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. But what drove me was what drives Indigenous people, is that we are a clan people. We are a community. We come from power. Residential schools, the 60s scoop, all the things we've been through is but a moment in our history when they tried to destroy us, but they didn't succeed. I always think about that. That was an effort that failed. I have thousands of years of history and knowledge and culture that still is alive in all of us. And I know it's alive because of that fundamental feeling I have about how much I love my children, how much I want to help, how important it is to try to fight to make Canada better. That sitting back and letting someone else do it is not an option. You know, you hear these stories of these mothers that will lift cars off of children, right? Well, we're in that phase right now where we need to lift the car so our children don't have to. They are worth it. They are worth all of us being brave, being strong, being courageous, and dreaming about something bigger than all of us, something better than all of us, something that could be amazing for all of us. I think about Oka and why I share my story. It's not to make you sad. It's not to depress you. It's to remind you that if we don't, that can happen, and it will happen. Our young Indigenous people are worth us finding that power to lift the car, to lift the building, to push down the barriers, to find our common humanity. What does it mean to be a human being? What does it mean to be Canadian? Is it okay that our Indigenous women go missing, are murdered, that our young men and our young women are imprisoned at incredible rates, that our women are forced sterilized? Even to this day, they have the chance of being sterilized against their will. This is happening in Canada. And I ask Canadians, what does it mean to be Canadian? I want to know. I want to believe that being Canadian means that no matter what race, religion, sexual orientation, or identity, that you don't have to fear, that you can be the best versions of yourself. I challenge that, and I'm You know, I believe it's possible. I believe in the common humanity of people. And you know, if you think about that, and I really love what you said about the calls to action, you take one. I'm not asking all of you to get out there and change every single thing. Take one piece, own it, live it, breathe it. Don't just be an activist, be an advocate. Know what you're talking about. Work in the trenches. Do it when nobody's watching. Do it when not just to get a great picture to put on Instagram. Retweeting, liking a picture is not activism. It is not advocacy. Showing up and doing the hard work is being an activist. I sat through one of the most boring Sports Canada meetings yesterday to learn about a high-performance sports strategy that hurt my brain. Because I believe in sport. That's the piece of pie I believe in. That's what I want to fight for. And so my mom made two important decisions in her life. And what she got out of it was my oldest sister, Dr. Ogisto Horn, first Mohawk woman doctor from my community. My other sister, mother of 6 kids, by the way. My other sister, Dr. Gahonde Horn Miller, professor of Indigenous Studies at Carleton, single mother of 4, now a grandmother, so I'm a grandmother. Then my little sister, who's not so little anymore, one of Canada's rising star actors. If you guys like a show called Letterkenny, anybody like Letterkenny? She's Tanis in Letterkenny. That's my sister. And she actually is not acting. That's actually how she is. And you think about that. My mother made four of us, little minis, do something and give back. Help make the community better. Help make the world better. And if you need motivation, I'll tell you the best story. I'll just end this with the best story of my Olympic career. So everybody always asks, what was the best thing that happened in the Olympics? Well, because scoring a hat trick and meeting Muhammad Ali was great. And I actually fought Venus and Serena Williams for a phone booth, and I won. But that wasn't the best story. The best story was the night before my very first game against Russia. I call my mom. I'm like, hey, Mom, you excited? Olympics is starting tomorrow. She's like, are you going to see me? Are you going to know I'm there? Are you going to see me? She really was worried I wasn't going to see her. And my little sister grabs the phone. She goes, don't worry. We got this covered. And I'm like, okay. So the next day I'm walking out, and we had to get introduced to the crowd. And I was number 12, so I was at the back of the line. And I'm walking out, searching the crowd. And my eyes come to rest on a girl who dyed her hair fire engine red. Like, I'm talking red. Sticking straight up like a firework went off on her head. Faces painted, big sign, go Waneek! And to this day, people back home in Ganawage said they saw her more on television than me, right? Like the crazy fan. Well, my mom, I was expecting her to be right next to her being crazy. But there was my mom. I could see her. She's got beautiful green eyes. And she was just holding herself, and she was bawling. And I thought to myself, someone was mean to my mom. Like, what happened, right? I couldn't ask. So I played the game, go through all the media stuff, rush up, go to my mom, and I say, hey, Mom, are you okay? What happened? Oh, who do you want me to beat up? Who was mean to you? Like I was worried. She goes, oh, no. She said, when you walked out for your first game, it reminded me of that promise I made you when you were just an 8-year-old girl. And I thought about all those times when we didn't have food, when we didn't have heat, when I almost could not help you go to that next practice. We didn't have enough money. When Oka happened and you almost broke and I almost broke. When you walked in, I knew that I had kept my promise to you as a mother. I had helped you. And she said, you made me proud of myself as a mother. I think to myself, well, I know that I made her cry many times because she was so pissed off at me. But if you can make your mother cry just once because she's proud of herself, that is the reason why we do things. That is the motivation of why we keep fighting and why we keep trying. One more day, one more practice, one more time. This very special experiment is going to take an Olympian effort by all of us. But we need to know we have to try one more time, one more effort, one more for our children and our mothers and our grandmothers and our great-great-great-grandfathers. All of them are worth it. And I want to tell you this story because it's possible, to show you that we can go through awful things and come out Olympians, because that is who we are as Indigenous people. We are fighters, we are warriors, we are beautiful, we are strong, we are powerful. When I went to the Olympics, I wanted to show them the power of Indigenous women, that we are ass kickers. And we are damn fine while we do it. So I want to thank you very much, and I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you today.
Okay, so thank you, Waneek. I know earlier I said that everyone will have the opportunity to ask lots of questions. Well, I lied. But we are going to do some audience questions. So does anyone in the audience have a question for Waneek?
Did I do such a good job that you have no questions?
Got one over here.
Hi there, Miigwech. Thank you for speaking today. We're from Sioux College, and we wanted to ask, how do we combat today's racism within the college community? So, yeah, that's kind of our question from Sioux College.
Well, that's a tough one, but it's real. It's in curriculum, and I worked at McGill, and let me tell you, like, it's when I got there, and this is like mid-2000s, holy cow, there was like 1 or 2 Native people that worked there, no faculty, no nothing. And if you're talking about old school kind of environment, that is, like, they still think that we educate all prime ministers, like, we're so awesome, everyone wants to come here. I'm like, not Native people. We want to go everywhere else but here, right? I think what I found was the most important thing is there's always allies, and creating that network of allies within the university. You know, you have to, it's one person at a time, and creating the why. Why is it important? Why is it important that you're on our side? What does it mean for you to be, you know, what does this university stand for? Does it stand for the perpetuation of racism or ignorance? Or are you going to get on board with everybody else and get the calls to action? And push that agenda to say, so how are you adopting the calls to action? Are you an institute of reconciliation? What does that mean to you? Let's go. You know what I mean? And creating that environment where there's that ability to discuss those issues. But I feel like when I worked at McGill, it took like a Herculean effort and a lot of patience. Like, we had like a really, like, oh my God, our chancellor was Dick Pound. Anybody know who Dick Pound is? Chancellor. When he was chancellor, he like made some stupid comment during the Olympics in Beijing about how you know, our culture was like in the Stone Ages and Chinese culture was so advanced. Oh my, and he just, but like, what matters to us and mattered to us, it wasn't just our people, Indigenous people, that said something, it was other people. And what matters is that when non-Indigenous people stand up and say, that's not appropriate. Because we get tired of being the only people saying it, and we just get called a bunch of angry Indigenous women and men, right? Oh, we're just mad all the time. But when you hear people that have no connection, they are not being forced up there by a whole bunch of Native friends going, say something. But if they say it on their own, that this is not who I am as an Indigenous person, that's important. And every college and university is looking to the future. And I used to challenge McGill all the time. So McGill always says they educated, you know, all the prime ministers here. I said, so where is the first Indigenous prime minister going to be educated, here or at U of S? Well, you're going to have to do some changes because nobody wants to come here. You know, challenge them. And it takes a lot of patience. You're working within the system that is very hard. But now, McGill, my brother, well, he's like my brother from another mother, kind of, you know how it is. He is now the advisor to the provost. Like it's changing and it's being pushed and pushed and pushed. But it's like you're working in a system that needs to change, but is so old school. It's not going to change overnight. And, you know, feeding your spirit's important. Ensuring that you can keep going. And I used to do that just by like having, like we had a powwow, we had all these things that we tried to grow. Like we made, you know, the 20 Indigenous people on campus look like we were thousands. It's like suddenly there's a powwow. I was like, oh my God, they're invading. I'm like, yes, we're invading for a day, you know. But that's the reality, right? You've chose to work in a system. It's frustrating. Creating those alliances, one person at a time, is really important. And being like you have to be bigger. You have to be often the bigger person. I hate that, but in the sport world, let me tell you, it's even worse. There's like very, very little room. But guess what? Because I kept pushing this and pushing it in the sport world, there's a huge Olympic prep event happening in Toronto in 3 weeks, and I'm the keynote speaker. In the beginning, we're opening it, and my niece is singing the Haudenosaunee water song to open it. Right? I am like the Borg. I am going to assimilate all of you. Any Star Trekkies in here, right? You will be part, and I look at it like that. But I know you're not seeing it right now, but that's the reality. So calls to action are a very tangible thing that people across the country are doing, and making them own up to that, and pushing that, and getting the student body behind you. So work with the student presidents. Work with those, they're pretty active. Like I said, they're the most malleable minds at the time.
Okay. Oh, one in the back.
You can just say it.
Or like I can yell or
Sorry, I'll just be really quick. Thank you for sharing your story. It was very inspiring. I'm an international student. It's the first time I've heard about residential schools and Indigenous people. My question is to you, how do you maintain such a positive composure, the way you speak about such terrible things you've been through? I mean, I can just imagine the rage of how Indigenous people have been treated and how unjust it is in such a Western society. How do you maintain being so positive by telling your story about what you've been through, yet withholding that anger?
I'm not saying the anger is gone. It definitely comes out. My kids, if I lose hope, they will see it in my face. I have to maintain hope if they're going to have hope. And they feed my spirit. They're so, like I have seen, and I hate to say that, I feel old when I say this, but over the last, 30-something years since Oka happened, I've seen change. Since Oka, we've had the RCAP report. We've had the TRC. We've had the National Inquiry into MMIWG. These things are changing the reality of this country. They're changing the consciousness. And tons of young people that are emerging as leaders in their own way, whether it's, in music, in acting, in writing. You're starting to see, what gives me hope is there's a huge growing movement of sci-fi, futuristic Indigenous writers. Our people never wrote in the future. But saying that we're writing in the future shows that we believe we're going to be into the future, right? And so I think about that, and I think about where I find that hope. And I also, I'm really spiritual. I was raised in my traditional culture. I also go and I've adopted family in Musqueam. I sundance. I daily do my own ceremony, which is I work out every single day. That's my ceremony to re-center myself. So I can't say that I'm 100% positive every single day, But I also know that my natural inclination is to be a pretty silly, pink-haired, weird, funny. I love having fun, and I just love people. And so I'm finding my way back after a long journey to being that authentic me. And I know that one of the greatest bits of advice I ever got, every time I got hit down and knocked down, I was told, you can't get smaller, you gotta get bigger. Keep getting bigger, grow, 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 grow. Be in their faces, be that smiling like, so what are you gonna do for me? You know, I'm on the shopping channel, if you guys don't know. I sell mukluks. And I've done it for like 9 years, and I've had a ball because I get 9 hours to tell people how awesome our people are. And I get to support a company. You know that Manitoba Mukluks is venturing into like a $46 million company? Indigenous company that hires Indigenous. There's a whole bunch of our workers that are skipping work back there. Right? So it's like, you know, these are things that keep me positive, and I know that reconciliation is not it's not an end destination. Reconciliation in all of us, it's a way of life. And I've chosen, and I have a mother who has seen so much in her life. She's going to be 80. She is the funniest woman you'll ever meet. If you ever want to listen to her, my little sister does a podcast with her called Coffee with My Ma. And they basically sit around and tell the craziest stories. Like my mom, you know, went and, there's a story where she went and saw Fidel Castro in Cuba speak after the revolution. One time where she got in a fight with the Toronto Telegraph and put a hex on them and shut them down. Or she wound up at Robert F. Kennedy, you know, the brother of JFK, at his funeral at the gravesite. And but it's all told in humor, right? So like I can't remain angry, but I don't forget, right? That's happened, and being vigilant, because human rights are something they're not something that you can say, okay, we've achieved it, boom, onwards. Human rights are alive. They are a living thing that we must protect, and we have to be vigilant. Indigenous rights are something that we have to keep pushing for, and it's all interconnected. Indigenous rights, transgendered rights, women's rights, all these rights that we enjoy, they're so simple to enjoy. Oh yeah, I have the right to freedom of expression, whatever. Well, I'll tell you, the outliers are things like the transgender population. When you start to see their rights being violated, the next is your rights. And it will all, it's like a domino effect. They're all interconnected. You can't choose which human rights you're going to violate and which ones you're going to hold up. They're all interconnected. And so I think about that, and I find I'm very active in fighting for Indigenous rights, but I'm also active in fighting for Muslim rights and women be able to wear hijab. Like I'm active in the transgendered. I will fight for a transgendered right because I feel it's important to me. Like I am personally invested in the well-being of that population because they're all related to us. I have lots of friends and family, so you know. But I also find it like it's not always sad. It's just, I don't know. I try to bring my own brand of I'm that person, you ever go to a funeral, Indigenous people, and you got someone that's telling jokes about the person and telling stories about when they were funny? How many of you guys got one of those people? Right? And you get everybody laughing? I'm that person. I know it's bad, but you will find at Indigenous funerals, we are laughing our asses off because we're telling the stories of our friends and the people, and we're reconnecting. So yeah, that's how we are, right? So, any other questions? Oh, okay, one back there, and then we'll go there. Okay, yeah? Yeah?
How positive can we be sometimes? Not the question, but there was something inside of me that said, well, I attended residential school, and I was only 5. And I ask you today to become an Olympian. Was there ever a part of you that you left behind to be at that level where you always wanted to be when you were 8 years old?
That's a really good question, because it's something that that definitely the sport world pushes you towards, especially when you play a team sport. There's a real there's a culture within team sports that you need to conform to. And I found myself early on in my career trying to conform to that. And I realized that I was putting out my own fire. I was trying to be more like everybody else. And I knew as I was doing that, my game was getting worse and worse and worse. And I remember talking to my mother and my family and saying, well, I don't know what to do. And she says, you need to be a warrior. You come from a family of warriors. Your great-grandfather's a war chief. You get in there and you be that warrior. And, you know, it's interesting because I had to find allies on my team, and I had some teammates who thought I was the weirdest person in the world. But then I had some teammates, well, let me tell you, when you have a bench clearing brawl and you're protecting them, they soon learn to love the warrior, right? I learned that I had to figure out how could I be the most powerful Mohawk woman in an environment that didn't know and didn't understand it. And like when I talk about the times where I really, really felt alienated and alone, and I mean, in the end, it was that Mohawkness that got me kicked off the Olympic team. But it was post-Olympics. So I could have gone to 3 more Olympic Games. But because I wouldn't stand for abuse being done to my teammates, and I stood up and I got the coaches fired and I had an investigation done, and then I got kicked off the team not long after. It was that belief and how I was raised that got me booted. But I did go to the Olympics. So, and funny thing is when I got inducted into the Hall of Fame, that's what they talked about. Because you hear about the safe sport and the Me Too movement, that's big in sport world right now. Well, I was 17 years too early for that, right? They didn't care. So, did I have to leave part of myself behind? Sometimes I felt that way. And I tried not to. That's the honest to God truth of how it was very, very, very lonely being on that team sometimes. So that's why now I try very, very hard to make that space more inclusive of who we are. And it's by far, it's not perfect. It's not. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to try. And I have to always try. And maybe the mantle will be picked up by another athlete and somebody else within the sport world that will take it further. And, you know, I look at countries like New Zealand, wherein after the 2004 Olympic Games, they decided to indigenize the Olympic movement. And now when you watch the New Zealand team march out for the opening ceremonies, you'll always see the flag bearer wearing the feather cape. They all wear the greenstone. They all learn the haka. They have elders coming with the Olympic team. This is the entire Olympic team. They bless the land and the water where they compete. So every national team, wherever they go, an elder goes and blesses the land in a traditional Maori way. I think, man, can you imagine if we did that? I think about how, like, that possibility and the strengthening. What I'm coming to realize within the movement, and I was also the deputy chef de mission for Team Canada at the Pan Am Games here in Toronto. And before the very opening ceremonies, the chef de missions are supposed to make a big speech, right? Before we went into the Rogers Center, all 800 athletes are there, right? And we get up on a box, and the chef de mission says, "Go team, go!" Blah blah blah. And I said to the chef de mission, I said, "I have a very special speech I want to make." And I got up there and I said, "My name is Waneek Garakwinuta Unat Garagete Sunshine Horn Miller. I'm a Bear Clan woman from the Mohawk Nations of Ganawage and Ashwegian. And in my culture, it is only the women that can declare war." And all the women went, "Whoa!" Like basketball teams, everybody went crazy. And I said, and I said the date, I can't remember what the exact date was. I said, I I'm your war chief. I am declaring war on Pan America. I said, I am not telling you to win. I am not telling you to win the gold. I am telling you to make every single one of your opponents regret the day they took the field against you. You make them fear you. You make them remember you. You make them have nightmares about you until the next time they see you. And they all went, oh my God. and then after that, like I had people coming out to me, athletes, and I gifted every single member of that team, 950 athletes and staff, I gifted them all tobacco pouches from my family. And to this day, many of them said, man, I have never been spoken to like that. You didn't tell me to win. You told me to leave a legacy. That's our people, right? You hear about the greatest warriors that we had, that we hear about in our culture. You don't often hear about how, if they won, you hear about how they fought, how powerful they were. And that's something that I really wanted to inject into the sports system. If that's a way that can make them want to learn more. So I thank you for your question. I don't know if I answered. And one more question right here. You had one question. I know. Oh.
Hi, my name is Eddie Wong. I am a first-year child and youth care worker student here at Humber. My question is, how does a proud educational curriculum look like to you for our youth that all Indigenous communities would like approve of?
For our people to be proud, they need to see themselves within it. They need to look at this curriculum that everybody's learning, not just them, everybody. Our worldview, the way we see things and do things is seen as something that's important for the entire system. And we've been treated very like, okay, well, we'll do it over here. We'll do that over there, and we'll take the Native kids and put them in that class and they'll learn it. I believe that we have something fundamental to teach the world. The relationship to the land, how to honor our elders, how to take care of them, family, all these things that are important for all people to understand. It needs to be seen as not just Indigenous knowledge, but just knowledge, important knowledge that augments and impacts the entire system. So I think that they need to see themselves. They need to see themselves as important and coming from a long legacy of knowledge keepers, but also learn that they come with we have a teaching, this is how I was taught, is that every child is born into this world with something, a special knowledge from the other side. And my mom would often say, people would say, oh, you must be so proud of your daughter. So I didn't do anything. They did it. I was just there to help them realize it. As teachers, you're supposed to help them pull out that knowledge, understand it, and use it in a good way to help the people. That's our jobs as parents and as teachers and elders. That's what we're supposed to do. What is that special gift? And I remember when I was working for the National Enquiry, it was so cool. I was working with an elder, and they were interviewing a lot of people, and they interviewed a young person with autistic. And rather than saying, well, how are we going to deal with this person's special needs, they said, how are we going to honor their gifts? And I thought, what a cool way of looking at someone, right? Rather than someone who's going to burden on the system, what is their special gift? And so it's just a different way of flipping it on its head a bit. And I believe that all people, creation, I was taught creation doesn't make mistakes. Creation sends our young people, our children into the world with valuable lessons for us, right? And even the ones that you see as the most challenging and the most that you might find challenging, they are going to grow your compassion. They are going to grow your knowledge. They're going to grow you as a person. They're going to make you stronger. They are going to make you more resilient because they are pushing you, right? The ones that are already like, in the box doing the thing, they're the ones that, well, okay, they're easy, right? But I always think about that. And, I have a niece that is special needs, and my sister's always telling me she's my greatest teacher. She's making me better. I want to be proud of being a mom because I've been gifted this special person in my life. So I don't know if that answers your questions, but I try. Okay.
Miigwech, Waneek, on behalf of everybody at Humber, I want to thank you for coming. Also, I don't know if you know this or if anybody in our audience knows this, but Humber is also one of the top ranking sports colleges in Canada. We also have a national champ in the audience, so we wanted to gift you this sweater, and you can play on our team.
Who's the national champion?
If we just want Anna to stand up and wave.
What sport? What sport? Woo! Right on. You're from Six Nations. Really?
Okay, so right now we'll have about a half hour for lunch. We'd like to have our elders served first, and then children if we have any in the crowd, and then everyone else. And we'll start in about half an hour, but I'll give a little memo before, about 5-10 minutes before we start.
So we do have some more work studies in the building. If we have Caleb and Bella here, raise your hand, and if for our elders, look to them to get your plates. Okay. Oh, there's Caleb. So he's going to grab a plate for somebody, and then he'll come and find you, okay?
Some more workout gear. Yep. Sweaty workout.
Can you grab my phone quick? You have both? Do you have my phone? Yeah. Hi.
So I'm from School College. I have a dietary restriction. I put it in my registration.
Okay, what's it?
It's gluten-free and celiac.
They should have put it.